Welcome to Talking Giants, presented by SeatGeek. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, Justin Pennick. And the episode you guys have all been expecting and been like, when are you guys going to really talk about this? Kadarius Toney has been arrested. Justin, how are you?
Oh, hello, Bobby Skinner, and
least surprising start to a Talking Giants episode ever. People are saying
just when we thought that you tell our past selves a couple years ago that we'd be getting a text message from Danny King at like 2:00 in the afternoon on a Wednesday that Kadarius Toney's been arrested because Danny King works for TMZ. It's just how we all thought that this would all play out.
Yeah, that's actually not surprising to me at all if you told me that 3 years ago. But no, we got a mailbag. The Stafford stuff is actually heating up to where I feel not like a clickbait artist actually talking about it. So we'll get into that. I got my Shedeur Sanders film done, so I'm going to give a take on that. So we're going to get into all of this stuff, Justin. Before we get into this mailbag, this episode was brought to you by some so special people. They're so special. You want to know why they're special, Justin? Because they're special, and I'm killing time as I pull up the name. We got Max Gross-Venor, not Max Grossman. Like Rex Grossman's brother, but Max Gross-Venor, Gross-Wiener. Justin, who is Max?
These wonderful people are just Max. Max went to patreon.com/talkinggiants for $2 a month, plus some other tiers. You get to hang out with us live while we record the shows. Little Patreon. This is a Patreon thought that I gave to the people that are watching before we record the shows. I say, how this Matthew Stafford news kind of feels, or I guess rumors, how the Matthew Stafford rumors kind of feel, it makes me kind of go like, ooh, fun, interesting. And that's a noise that I haven't made that often when it comes to this football team. So that's analysis for you. Bobby Skinner will send you some stickers in the mail. Plus, there's some shirt raffles that we do a couple times a month. Patreon.com/talkinggiants. You'll be glad you did. Ooh.
Be glad you did. Take it away, Steve.
Mail time.
Mail time. The mail's here. Come on. Bye, guys. Here's the mail. It never fails. It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes, I want to wail.
Thanks, Steve from Blues Clues. Justin, let's get into the mail.
Yeah, let's talk about it, man. Sexy Dexy for MVP at Sexy Dexy for MVP. Matthew Stafford smoke. Is it real? I think it is. It started as a joke by Ethan, and it kind of has turned into something.
Well, speaking of Steve from Blues Clues, you know that Giants 101, let's get back to the basics, NYG Revival tweeted that like a month ago?
They did?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm sorry to those guys
Not
that
NYG,
we didn't see
New
it.
York Revival. I know. They replied, and I was like, okay, thank you for replying, because I didn't. But they, next year we got to get Giants 102. 90210. All right. So, Matthew Stafford and the Giants. There actually has been like real conversations around this, and the smoke is becoming thicker and thicker and thicker, right? When Schefter tweeted out that Chad Hall was the brother-in-law of Matthew Stafford, everyone's like, what a Schefter. We kind of do that with every Schefter tweet, and sometimes Schefter just wants to get the most engagement on a tweet. And I was like, I don't know if that necessarily means anything, but it is funny with all like the joke rumors that started. But there actually is like conversations around this shit happening with the Giants. I'll say this, because Daniel Jeremiah talked about like it. Any conversation about the third overall pick should be like, hang up the phone, like, okay, this is not a real conversation. So let's start there.
Yes.
But with Matthew Stafford and all this, I'm torn. Because there's one of two consensus top QBs that I do not want, and we'll get into that later in the episode. And if they can't get one, I can't really expect Joe Shane to have a QB plan of Jacoby Brissett or Russell Wilson.
Or Justin Fields,
That's not a long-term, that's like just, and that's part of the reason of having Joe Shane make these decisions. It makes them unnecessarily risky and makes you question everything, because it's like, all right, if this was year one Joe Shane, what would he be doing?
There's a stink to him. You used that phrase before we started recording.
There's a stink around it.
To any kind of aggressive Joe Shane quarterback move, because of how desperate everybody is to save their jobs because they need results right now.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's like a GM who probably should have been fired, who is on the hottest seat possible, is trading for a 37-year-old QB on a team that does not really have a win-now roster. That doesn't sound good on paper. And there's another couple other things is where it's like, I may be somewhat open to this Stafford stuff, but there is parts of it that I want to be. The idea of trading for him and then drafting a QB, don't like that. Don't like that. With the third pick. If we're talking about like a third round pick, that's a different conversation. Because if you view the quarterback worthy of taking third overall, then you shouldn't be trading for Matthew Stafford. You're trading a third round pick or a second round pick for a 37-year-old QB who have a $27 million cap hit, who probably wants a new deal, and that's a big reason why there may be a trade away from the Rams. Next year we'll have a $55 million cap hit if you don't touch the contract. And if they do cut him after this, season, it'd be a $22 million of dead cap. So another dead cap, $20 million dead cap hit on a quarterback. So like you just don't do this type of move for a bridge quarterback. You do that to get through the next 2-3 years to win games.
I view it a little differently. Whereas hey, if you're gonna trade for Matt Stafford, that is a right now move. And that if you were to take a quarterback third, it's almost like what the Falcons did with Michael Penix, right? Now I think as time has gone on.
Which was stupid. They should have done one or the other.
Right, which I agree. Because for team building, and if you have a plan, and if you have a target, and if you're willing to invest in a certain guy to a certain extent, you should go for it. So why not give Matthew Stafford a Travis Hunter, another wide receiver, a defensive back one, or draft an Abdul Carter, who is, an A++ player, possibly generational player that can help out the team even right now and in the long term, obviously.
Or if you're drafting a quarterback to be a franchise quarterback, you have a lot more money to operate with the add pieces around him with more like, not premium draft capital, but good draft capital to help him out too. Like if you view that quarterback worth it, just, sign Russell Wilson or whoever, whatever quarterback that's going to come in for less than $20 million.
But this is where I will push back a little bit. And again, this is exactly like, and I recognize how hypocritical I'm being. This is exactly like what the Falcons did with Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix, and that was a move that I still didn't love. Right? I still do think that Joe Shane can trade for Matt Stafford, compete for today, build for tomorrow, and like that is a justification to build for tomorrow. Because I do not think Matthew Stafford will be looking for a contract extension. He's 37 years old. He has 2 more years left on his deal, and this is a guy that was pondering retirement a couple years ago. I think the emergence of Puka Nacua saved Matthew Stafford's career. He was getting the shit kicked out of him behind that Rams offensive line, and now Puka comes along and Cooper Kupp is a little bit more healthier. I think that's kind of like revitalized his career. A guy that I wasn't even sure that was going to continue playing, and that Rams team took a turn for the better too roster-wise. So, I don't know, man. I don't know if Stafford's going to... I think the part that I disagree with you is I don't know if Stafford's going to be looking for a contract extension, because is Stafford really going to be playing for 3 or 4 more years?
Okay, even if he's not, that's a $27 million cap hit this year, and you're either giving him he's either taking up $55 million in year 2 of it, or you're cutting him and you're taking on a $22 million dead cap charge.
And the point, and I guess the overall point of drafting...
If you draft a quarterback 3rd overall, he should be starting next year. Even if you don't want him to start his whole rookie year, he should be starting 2026. This is not a situation where you draft a quarterback while you've had you have a aging franchise quarterback who's been on your team for a long time.
I agree with you. But I think if this does happen, I still think there's a chance that they could go down that path of taking Shador third, because even the whole thing of in today's NFL, even though I wouldn't love how they get there and the destination there, but I do like the idea of a QB sitting for an extended period of time.
Okay, you can do that without trading and giving and paying high cap dollars for the quarterback.
I know.
Okay, I'm not a play the quarterback right away guy either. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, if you're picking your guy 3rd overall, that's the guy you're picking to be your franchise quarterback. The Giants don't have a roster where you add Stafford and you're like, they could actually legitimately win the Super Bowl, right? They will compete for a playoff spot, but you're not talking about them winning the Super Bowl unless they go on this crazy miraculous run. And again, I'm not fully anti-Stafford, but this is where I'll go. So I looked at some old quarterback trades of older guys in the last 5 years or so. There's only really 4 that stand out. You know, you had 39-year-old Aaron Rodgers. He was traded for 2 seconds. You know, it could have been a first and a second based on playing time. Obviously, Rodgers didn't hit that. And then, you know, the Packers moved up 2 spots in the first round in that swap, and then they gave up a 4th and got the Jets 5th. So that was 39-year-old Rodgers. 37-year-old Matt Ryan for a 3rd. That was obviously a bad one, but Matt Ryan was shot in the season that he was traded for. I don't know why. Stafford's not that. 34-year-old Russell Wilson for 2 firsts, 2 seconds, a 5th. Drew Lock, Noah Fant, and Shelby Harris. If it wasn't for Deshaun Watson, that might be the worst trade of all time. And then 33-year-old Matthew Stafford for 2 firsts, a 3rd, and a golf. That worked out. So this is why, even though the Giants, this is where I would not celebrate, but be okay with the Matthew Stafford trade, is if they don't believe in either one of these quarterbacks, Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders or whatever, or they know Cam Ward's going to go first and the Titans are taking it, you know, in a situation where they're not drafting a quarterback with their first pick. One, I don't want to give up the second-round pick. It's the second pick of the second round for a 37-year-old QB with a big contract.
And realistically is going to give you 2 years, I think 2 years max.
2 years if you're lucky. And you never know, he could fall off. Like, that happens.
Yeah.
Now, here's the part that I do like. I think you have the second best quarterback in the NFC with Matthew Stafford after Jaden Daniels.
I'd agree with
people want to argue between Dak, Hurts, Goff, Love, Baker, Kyler, Purdy, or Geno, fine. But my opinion is he's the second best quarterback in the NFC. Now, he'd be 5th at best in the AFC, right? But that is where, if you told me you can trade a 3rd-round pick and a 4th-round pick next year for 2 years of the second best quarterback in the NFC, I'm not going to sit here and cling to those draft picks.
Right, yeah.
But it would make me feel a lot better if it was not Joe Shane making that move, because it's like, again, what are your motives?
Right. So Matthew Stafford as a quarterback right now, I love. I mean, if you listen to football today, if you've listened to football today over the last kind of 2-ish years, Stafford is a guy that I've just kind of marveled at some of the throws that he can make in the circumstances and the situation that he's been able to make those throws, especially 2 years ago. That Rams offensive line was not perfect. It definitely took an upgrade this year. You know, Puka Nacua struggled with health, Cooper Kupp struggled with health. But in these games where Stafford is really outmatched, anytime he plays the Lions, he is outmatched. And there have been some duels that Goff and Stafford have had in between the playoffs and the regular season. And even though the Rams haven't come out on top as a team,
they won the Super Bowl with them.
Stafford has, yes, but I'm talking about particularly the last 2 years. Stafford has outdueled Jared Goff in those games, even though the Lions do come out on top. And I just think, you know, there's baggage that Stafford has as a quarterback, but I just think, like, if you evaluate quarterback play, like our co-host Chris Rose does on Football Today, if you evaluate quarterback play as who do I want the ball in their hands with 2 minutes left, game is on the line, I need a clutch throw, I need a guy to, be about it, I think Matthew Stafford is that guy. Now, I think his 2024 was a little worse than his 2023, even though the Rams roster kind of got better. And that is something that you do have to kind of keep in the back of your mind, that the Rams roster has gotten better. It's not perfect. That Rams defense is not perfect. That Rams offense is not perfect. And he would be going to a team where he would be another year older and coming off a year where he had 4 scrambles, by the way, 4. He was never a mover, but 4 in a league where you kind of need to move a little bit. Coming to a new team where the team is worse and everything is kind of worse. That's the only thing.
I agree. You told me it's for a 3rd round, I'm okay, but it reeks of desperation to trade a 1st-round pick, and it's not going to be like one pick by itself too. Like, there's going to be stuff matched to it.
Yeah, there's got to be
for a 37-year-old QB with big cap hits.
Would you do the Giants' second-round pick if we get a third-round pick back?
Oh, well, now we're
Because that's how this shit works, man.
Now we're getting into wacko land where it's like it's just hypothetical after hypothetical.
But that's how this shit works sometimes, though. You know that, like the whole Rodgers thing with the conditional pick, and
by the way,
he's got to play.
Per Doug Analytics, Matthew Stafford led the league in EPA per scramble.
He had 4 of them.
No, they were good. No, because I view that second round pick, top of the second round. You should get a top 10 player on the roster for the next 8+ years.
That's fair.
So no, the answer is no. The third round pick, maybe it's a big maybe. You hope it's a good pick, but it's turned into a lot of shit over the years, especially for the Giants have like a third round pick curse. So no, you know what? My answer is no. I'm putting my flag in the sand.
Putting your flag in the sand. And here's the hope. What is one thing that Joe Schoen has done right as Giants general manager?
Tell me.
Trades.
Yeah, he's gotten good value on trades. Now, I know people will talk about the draft trade-ups that didn't work, but like just overall. And again, I didn't like the Deontay Banks trade-up, but like he has not done any trade where in the moment you're like, you gave up what for what?
Right.
It's been the other way around.
Yeah. So that's the hope, is that desperation, and let's have that balanced mindset of like, hey, you know, compete for today, win for tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. And this would be a trade for 2025 to try and Joe Schoen, Brian Daboll, the narrative is going to change around them. See, we got competent quarterback play. See what happened. Because I don't think this is not for 2026 and beyond. This is simply for 2025.
Well, and, you know, there's going to be a counter argument to any type of trading for Stafford. Okay, then you're going to play well enough to not have a top pick. Stop. Okay,
Fine.
At some point, you have to stop worrying about getting the top pick. Okay, at some point, you need to, like, the good teams don't get good because of a top pick. You know, obviously, you get Jaden Daniels second overall, and that fucking, like, but, like, you cannot live life like that as an NFL GM. Now, you shouldn't be looking to max out and do everything you can every offseason to get the most wins possible. Well, that's also true. So, but like the thing that I keep coming to of being against it is like, okay, 3 years from now, Matthew Stafford's off the Giants. What realistically did he add to this team?
That's a great question, and I don't have the answer to that.
And it's why which is why I'm leaning in the I don't want it camp.
Which is why I think it's very possible that they also draft a quarterback third.
Draft a quarterback third. Don't take trade for Matthew Stafford then. All right, next question. By the way, before we get off this was the first episode where I actually feel really comfortable talking about this, because there's actual like legit conversations and calls and shit happening about this. Yeah,
100%.
So like. It's kind of shocking. You know, we're obviously friends with Ethan, and you know, so we share some messages, and it's like it's fucking unbelievable that this stupid ass shit you made up is now like becoming a very real possibility.
I'm not putting it past somebody sees somebody. It doesn't even have to be Joe Schoen himself, but somebody from the Giants front office. They check this shit, man. They check it. They're aware of what's going on and what's being said.
They are, but they're also.
You gotta wonder, did somebody see that and be like, give Les Snead a call? Why not? And then it led to one thing led to another, and you know, now we're in the off season and it's being talked about a little bit more. So I don't know. Fans conspiracy theory. You like to think.
Next question.
Next question is coming from Logan Jens at Logan_Jens15. Do you think the Rams would trade Stafford to the Giants if the Giants read and add in return? Oh boy, that's what I definitely hope it takes to get it done. Because today's episode is sponsored by Corona. You know what I always try to be? A fan that never loses. Here's what I mean. We all know our Giants don't win every single week, but even when they lose, I'm still loving the game, because whether it's a big deep ball, some third and short conversions, hopefully we get some of those with Stafford, or just a great tailgate out in the parking lot, there's always something to cheer for, and the best beer to pair with awesome moments. Corona. Corona is all about finding the maximum amount of joy within every moment of the game, win or lose at home or on the road. Let's win more at home. It's the perfect beer to go along with watching football and all the moments that come with it. So cheers, clink, to everyone who loves the game beyond the scoreboard. The clink was for the cheering, the cheering glasses, the toasting glasses. Corona, for the fans who never lose. Get yours at ordercorona.com for 21 plus. Relax responsibly. Corona Extra Beer, imported by Crown Imports, Chicago, Illinois. You'll be glad you did.
Be glad you did. Next question.
Next question. Mark Scott recently changed his names. Mark Scott, real name, no gimmicks, at mscott4985. Love that. I read that confidently. Would you be okay if the Giants passed on a quarterback for Carter or Mason Graham, the Michigan D tackle, or a DB? Let's just say like a Travis Hunter.
Philosophically, no. I don't believe in passing up quarterback to build other positions or build the roster first and add a QB later, right? You see people like, oh, you need to build the roster first and then you add the QB. And they'll point at the Eagles or whatever. You know, like the people suggested the Texans do that in 2023, and I think they're pretty happy with not doing that and ending up with C.J. Stroud as their quarterback. But here's what I'll say: we're not in philosophy class. We are in the 2025 NFL offseason, and we have
Philosophy 101.
Get back to the basics. Giants 101. We're in real life where there's real people, and some are good and some are bad, and you have money and picks and I've watched Cam Ward casually, Justin, while watching TV. Mid-season mock, I watched some of his game stuff, but not all 22. And I watch Xavier Restrepo all 22, and obviously watching Cam Ward while I do that. So with like that sample size of film, I would draft Cam Ward with that sample size of film. I haven't done my full deep dive on him. I'm going to tell you something, though. I have done my deep dive on Shedeur Sanders, right? Through 6 games of all 22, and I changed my quarterback approach this year where I want to watch the broadcast first. So you just get the feel of a game, right? Sometimes when you're watching all 22, a bad play happens. You're like, oh, that's bad, next play. But sometimes in the game, that bad play, like that missed throw or was the difference between winning or losing or shit like that. So I've been adding that. And so, you know, I've watched the 6 games of broadcast, 6 games of all 22. And so now I'm going to go back through that to find the plays that I want to make a video on him. So I will have a video out on him in the next couple weeks. I'm passing on Shedeur Sanders 10 times out of 10 at pick number 3. Like, his arm is NFL. I get to actually ask the next question, Justin, because I want to answer this question within the question.
So this is a Ghost in Brooklyn at Ghost in BK. Big question marks about Shedeur's arm strength. Is that something that can be improved once he gets into a consistent NFL strength and conditioning program, or is QB arm strength already near its ceiling entering the pros? I will say about Shedeur Sanders, he just turned 23 years old as context.
So, one, I think his arm is NFL average. I think he has an NFL arm. Obviously, it's not the top of the league type arm, but it's not a bet on developing arm mixed with his lack of athleticism, Justin. But arm strength does get better. It doesn't get significantly better, but it does get better. Like Peyton Manning, if you work at it. But guys' arms do get better. When you go and watch Shedeur Sanders film, I want people to tell me, where are these really impressive plays in his film? Because I don't see it, you know. And I it's not because he has the lack of arm. That obviously contributes to it, but his anticipation is average at best, right? So if a guy doesn't have a big arm, you have great anticipation. It's average at best. He gets confused by basically every coverage rotation I've seen thrown at him. And not just confused where he's late a second, where he throws interception. He's basically good with his first read, Justin. And, you know, like, then he'll scramble. Like, if it's not there, he'll scramble. And he's actually, for not being that athletic, he can make the first guy miss. But a lot of times those turn into sacks anyways, even when he makes the first guy miss. Like, what I like about Shedeur Sanders, he throws a good touch pass on the sideline with solid accuracy, and he can make the first guy miss in the pocket. But also those are Big 12 defensive end and defensive tackles that he's making miss. And he's still taking an insane amount of really, really bad sacks. And, you know, the offensive line was not good for them, but it wasn't as bad as people make it out to be. The Nebraska game, it was really bad, but you also saw Shedeur play his worst in that, you know? So, like, but getting back to the first question, you don't pass on what you think is a franchise QB to build the roster. You do draft the QB and take the chance if you believe in him, but you don't just draft a QB because you need quarterback and not the whole nothing matters until you have the QB keep taking swings. Like at some point, who these players are matter. And if you're saying, oh, you got to take a chance, okay. What if I told you that Shedeur Sanders decided to go play baseball, and now the top 2 quarterbacks in the class are Cam Ward and Jackson Dart? Are you still telling me you have to take a chance on Jackson Dart at pick 3? So and again, don't clip this shit socials, by the way, because I want to do a breakdown and all that stuff before all the Shedeur Sanders stuff gets out there. But where are the impressive plays? They're just not there. There's some nice plays, but there's not these really impressive plays, and I see mental mistakes, and I see a guy who takes terrible, terrible sacks. And you got to have you have to have more wow and more athleticism and bigger arm for me to take a chance on you if you're not doing those things really well.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games this year for Shedeur Sanders, and the last 2 being 26% pressure to sack rate. The bowl game against BYU was 26.7. That's how many games that Shedeur Sanders had a pressure to sack rate that's over 20%. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 out of his out of the 15 games that he played this year. So 14 games that he played this year. That's not good. So yeah, I haven't fully.
I'm not asking you to do your whole take on Shedeur before you go and watch him.
No, but here is my take on him off the field. I have like questions because I'm not going to deny that he's a hard worker. I'm not talking about that. What I want to talk about is that Nebraska game where he threw his offensive lineman under the bus still rubs me the wrong way, man. And whether you and call me old man, whatever. He has this freaking podcast that you go on and you talk about whatever every single week. I'm sorry, my edge rusher, Micah Parsons, or whoever, Kayvon Thibodeau, if he had a podcast, fine. My quarterback having a podcast, not something that I really like, and not something that I really want. Maybe he shuts it down when he gets into the NFL. Cool. I just think I don't want to word this without being looked at as an asshole. I just have questions about Shedeur Sanders and if he can handle New York, handle the pressure of being a quarterback, and not just handle New York, because I think that shit's overblown. You're going to lose when you get here, right? The odds are of you being Jaden Daniels and winning 10, 11 games and going to the NFC Championship game in your first year, odds are that ain't going to happen, bro. So how are you going to handle that? How are you and Malik Neighbors going to handle maybe not being on the same page, maybe not having all the offensive success? And man, if we have it, great. But if we don't, and that offensive line is bad, and you're taking sacks, and we're getting negative plays, what's the conversation going to be like? Are you going to be accountable, or are you going to point the finger? That's the question that I have.
That shit will drive me nuts. But at the end of the day, Justin, if I thought he was talented, if I thought he was going to be a franchise QB, I'm still drafting him, right? Peyton Manning threw his team under the bus after a playoff game. Called Mike Vanderjagt an idiot, drunk kicker. So that shit doesn't, I won't say it doesn't bother me. It does, but it doesn't stop me from, again, the impressive plays are not consistently
there. If the guy has those traits. If Caleb Williams was doing that.
Well, forget traits. Forget traits. He does not have amazing film where he's anticipating and do all that. You could find some good plays, but it's just, a guy who can anticipate like that is not getting fooled by safety cover, coverage rotations and stuff. It's just not. It's not super impressive film. And if you come in with the completion percentage that he tweeted out, look at the next guys on those lists and tell me where you're drafting them. So, here's what I'll say about Shedeur, because I don't want to call him the worst quarterback of all time. What I'm saying is he would have been QB7 in last year's class for me. Cam Ward, when I've watched him, I don't see that. I see a guy who I probably would have had quarterback 4 after Jaden Daniels. Shedeur Sanders, when I watch his film, okay, you clearly would have been QB7 after all these other guys for me. Clearly.
Yeah. And the only thing I'll say about the completion percentage stuff is Shedeur Sanders had an average after target of 8 yards. It's not awesome.
Listen, I think he throws the deep ball well. Throws good touch passes down the field. Again, they're not all bad, but it's not NFL impressive.
Yep.
It's not first round impressive film. It's just not.
I mean, we're talking about the 3rd overall pick here. I think you have to be harsh. I think you have to be like, 3rd overall pick, you're drafting a guy not to be a dude.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what position.
Right now, I'm just talking on a podcast. I'll have a film breakdown of him in the next couple of weeks, and I'll highlight and show you guys that stuff, right? Because did the same thing with did breakdowns on Drake May and JJ McCarthy last year. They're 2 guys who I thought were actual options. This year I'm going to do it on Sanders and Ward. Do breakdowns. I might even do one on Jalen Milroe just for the fuck of it. But it's not great.
Yeah,
but that was.
Out of
but
draft,
wanted to get that film done before the wedding, and the Shador, and I'm like, this is not good.
Out of draft eligible QBs, Shador Sanders 38th in average depth of target. So I really don't think it's 38th out of 44. By the way, 44 eligible QBs in a draft, that are draft eligible in 2025.
He doesn't make difficult throws.
No, so that's why I'm not. That's why
he doesn't have these crazy misses, but he doesn't make difficult throws.
That's why I wouldn't flex the completion percentage. But I will say, I mean, it doesn't seem like he turnovers the ball all that much, but the sacks is just brutal, man. And coming from a quarterback that like you want a repeat of what we just went through with the quarterback that had poor pocket presence and took a lot of sacks. That is awful, man. That is losing football. Taking sacks is losing football, I feel like, before you can even fully begin. Before we can even install other shit. If you have a quarterback that's just going to take sacks, doesn't matter how open Neighbors is, doesn't matter how open Wan'Dale Robinson is, doesn't matter how great of a play Brian Dable can design. If we're taking sacks, it's the end. Yeah.
He's just not it. And no matter how many, draft analysts, editorial boards who, force them to be in people's top 30, top 50 or whatever, or excuse me, not top 30 or whatever, because, quarterback drums up interest, and how much more fun it is to just like the quarterback and point out the good thing. And whenever he gets drafted by whatever team, like say, see, I'm your hero. It's just not it. Now, Cam Ward, I want Cam Ward. I know, Justin, you've watched him a little. You like him less than I do. I want Cam Ward from what I've seen from him. Shador Sanders, not so much. Next question.
Yeah, Cam Ward gives me an anxiety attack. Let's see. Oh, how about this, Bobby? Brian McLinn, at Brian McLinn. Either Cam Ward and Shador Sanders. Who reads a better ad? Now, that's the real question.
Honestly, Shador. I mean, he's got a podcast. He's got experience with ad reads.
Yeah.
I mean, can't be all shade at Shador. He reads the best ad. So, next question.
Don't you want to talk about something?
I'm just kidding. We only have the one Corona ad, so we're doing a second bonus ad for Bobby's Breakdowns. You're like, what the fuck is Bobby's Breakdowns? Well, over 400 million people use Bobby's Breakdowns. Nope, that's false advertising. It's our new YouTube channel where I'm doing all the draft film breakdowns. Instead of them getting flooded out on Jam Football, because there's so much content on there, I figured, like, let's just make another channel for the breakdowns, for what they are. So we have 3 on there already. We'll have a 4th by the time you're listening to this. Shador Sanders will be out soon. So, gonna go, Cam Ward will be on there.
Abdul
so
Carter's
really excited.
already out.
Yeah, Abdul Carter's out there, right? Who, if Cam Ward goes in the top 2, that's my guy. Hopefully Abdul Carter doesn't go in the top 2 then. So yeah, check it out. It's fun. It's putting it on a new channel has kind of made me like more excited to crank out these film breakdowns. I've been transferring shit, video after video to Justin. So
yep.
Check it out. Subscribe. Like and subscribe. And we need to get it monetized. So we need to get 3,000 watch hours. So just watch it. Just watch it continuously all day. And
click the link in the description to subscribe to Bobby's Breakdowns. New YouTube channel.
Like and subscribe.
How do you like that? All right, next question is coming from Jack Salazoni at Jack Salazoni. This was a hard exercise to do either side. What do you think are the Giants' 3 biggest positions of strength and the 3 weakest position groups going into this offseason?
Can I tell you, I think the position of strength is easier to answer than the position of weakness.
I agree with that. Now, I would like to give the caveat to this question of besides quarterback, because they simply just don't have any quarterback that can, like Tommy DeVito is the only quarterback that's really under contract. So I kind of want to ask this like besides quarterback, but if you want to include quarterback, that's fine.
Well, it's the biggest position of weakness on the team, even if they re-sign the guys that they had. So, but let's go strength first. My 3 are edge, you can hear something that's weird for the New York Giants land. Offensive tackle.
Okay. Yes.
And then wide receiver would be my third one. With or without Darius Slayton. I'd rather have, because I went between inside linebacker. I think Neighbors and Wandale is better than Okereke and McFadden.
Okay. Did you put running back in there?
No.
All right, I put running back because I think having Devin
Do they have
Singletary...
a top 15 player on any of those?
The three biggest positions of strength. I kind of read this as depth, too.
Well, that's part of it, but I just think I think offensive tackle, you have Thomas and Illuminor. I think Thomas is obviously better at his position. Burns is better at his position, and then Kayvon's better than, the other guy, and then Neighbors is all,
Do you really consider edge a position of strength, considering there's no capable backup? Azeez Ojulari is a free agent.
Okay, well, I mean, what position is... Yeah, running back technically has a better capable backup, but he's getting 4 carries per game.
Right. I'm just, again, I read this a little differently.
It's part of it, but the starters are
the
main source of strength and weakness.
I would say I agree with you with offensive tackle because honestly, in a league with bad offensive linemen, this sentence that's going to come out of my mouth that's going to be effed up. But Evan Neal as a backup tackle is not the worst thing in the world. That's the bar for Evan Neal right now. But him as a backup tackle, I think there are worse backup tackles that we've seen. And I think last year kind of proved that. Do they still need to take it more seriously? Yes. But if they don't, you may just have to live with Evan Neal being your backup tackle. So offensive tackle, I agree.
I don't want him as a backup tackle.
I did put edge as the position of strength. I also put tight end as just it's a room full of it has guys. Theo Johnson, Daniel Bellinger are a 1-2 punch.
If you're asking me for which third string player is the biggest position strength, I'd say tight end. But I mean, Theo Johnson's like bottom 5 for tight ends in yards per route run.
Right,
and he's your starter.
That's why this exercise was very difficult.
So you have tight end over wide receiver?
Bobby, they have one outside wide receiver right now. Darius Slayton's a free agent.
Okay, you're saying that. But you have Malik Neighbors, who's a Pro Bowl level player, and then you're saying no one outside receiver. You have Theo Johnson as the number 1.
I looked at this as
7
depth.
career catches.
I don't look at wide receiver as a position of strength with only Malik Neighbors there.
But Wandale Robinson's a solid player.
Yeah, but he's the slot only guy. I'm talking.
Okay, but he's a solid player. But you're talking about over tight end. I think is crazy.
I don't know. I am interpreting the question as
yes. I understand. I understand depth, but we're not ranking which backups are the best. We're ranking which position group is the best. In reality, the position group the starters play.
Right, but it's not real life just to have only rely on one person too. So. That's why
what is more advantage for the New York Giants going into a game this year?
Malik
Their
Neighbors.
wide receiver room or their wide receiver room or their tight end room?
Wide receiver room.
Okay, so that's a stronger position.
But there's only 2 guys that can catch the ball for you and that are on the team right now that you feel good about. Wandale Robinson and Malik Neighbors.
There's only one guy on the tight end room who I feel good catching the ball, and that's even still a lot of to be decided with Theo Johnson.
I know. This is not a good question for the Giants.
Yeah, but the wide receiver room is stronger. Weaknesses: the corner, I think is going to be a common one. It's because they're not great. It's hard to say which one's the third. I almost want to say defensive tackle.
I have that as number 1.
Well, you have a what's the weakest position you have the best nose tackle of all time.
But outside of again, I think we are on different spectrums. I'm not saying that.
Yeah, I'm on the right spectrum. You're on the wrong one.
I disagree with you. Who else besides Dexter Lawrence? Nacho can be on most NFL teams.
Besides what?
Besides Dex.
Describe Dexter Lawrence when you say besides him. Besides a 3-time All-Pro.
We're talking about the strength of the room.
I understand, but that Dexter Lawrence makes that room a lot stronger than the cornerback room that has nobody.
These cornerbacks, there's bodies there.
There's bodies in defensive tackle room.
Who outside of Nacho?
Who outside of who in the cornerback room? Drew Phillips, a nickel corner only?
Like, there's Deontay Banks, who is Deontay Banks. There's Cordell Flott, who showed a little bit more. And Drew, there's 3 names in there that are like,
I mean, every room literally does have names. I mean, they all have names, Justin.
But none of them outside, none of them outside of Dex do I want. I don't even want them on the team.
Outside of the 3-time All-Pro, best nose tackle of all time.
But I'm not.
I don't want any of the corners on this team except for Drew Phillips.
You can't say that about Deontay
Besides,
Banks.
as starters, like Banks can be a good cornerback.
Deontay Banks is going to be a starter.
Yeah, because of where he's drafted. If you just looked at his film, would you be like, this is a guy who's going to be would he be a top 15 cornerback too in the NFL? I don't know.
I think he can.
Again, right, so give me your 3 weak spots.
I don't really have 3. It's like, this is so
Pick 3.
So bad.
It's a question. It's a mailbag question. You got to answer it. I'm going quarterback.
Like, I would say wide receiver's really bad. They only have 1 outside receiver on the team right now. Interior D-line.
Are they going 5 wide?
Interior D-line. I don't like interior O-line. They have 2 guys that are like there. Safety. Like, I think you can make an argument. I think you can make an argument for edge because there's no backup. Everything is weak, man. Everything is weak.
I agree. The depth of this team is weak, but the depth of the tight end room does not make it better than Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau or Malik Neighbors and Wan'Dale Robinson. So, just to spite you, I'm going quarterback, cornerback, and tight end as the 3 weak spots.
Okay. I didn't like this question.
Next question.
This question made me realize that maybe we shouldn't be trading for Matt Stafford. Maybe we should just try and build a good team. Joe at Dumb Liners. Speaking of what that question was for me, Dumb Liners. After watching Bowen for a season, how was his defense play calling versus what you saw / expected based on his Titans tape? A fear many of us had was that Vrabel was really in control of the defense in Tennessee. What are your thoughts now?
I'll say Shane Bowen. There's one thing I ever felt good about, like predicting what a person would be. It is Shane Bowen, because I got exactly what he showed last year in Tennessee. I don't know about 2020 through 2022 what it was like in Tennessee, but I did those film streams of 2023. I mean, it was the exact thing. It's like not much blitzing at all. Where 2 high safeties where you're going to rotate into cover 1 and cover 3, light boxes, lack of exotic coverages, not much press man, and then wide defensive ends and running a lot of stunts. I mean, that's exactly what it is. And the reason why it didn't have as much success as Tennessee is you don't have the run defenders that Tennessee had. Tennessee had run defenders all over that team. Their front 4 could stop the run. Their corners could stop the run. Their linebackers were okay at stopping the run. You at least had Azeez Al-Shir, who was an aggressive linebacker, as Trevor Lawrence found out. Their safeties, could stop the run. The Giants, it's a personnel issue with them stopping the run wise, but also Shane Bowen didn't do anything schematically to try and make up for that. And their pass coverage, despite the fact that they didn't give up a ton of yards, they didn't throw any exotic looks at teams to try and confuse them. It was a very vanilla. Like, I hate using the word vanilla because people always say that about offensive play callers. And it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? You're just judging the results. You don't know what you're talking about. But it was a very vanilla defense with Shane Bowen.
Yeah, I guess the thing that I was kind of looking forward to and a little bit excited about is I thought maybe they would force a little, like, more turnovers. I think that's probably the most disappointing thing. Like, knowing that you have a not talented secondary, it's like, all right, you kind of knew that coming in. Knowing that we had a really strong pass rush, okay, cool. And he was able to utilize that, but just being so bad in that category, forcing turnovers, and being so, I think being bad against the run, I do think that's a personnel issue. Like, we've seen 2 defense coordinators now who have resumes of having, like, #1 run defenses in the NFL, and then they come here, and the roster that Joe Shane has organized, and then they are the worst in the NFL. So, sample size is now telling us that that's more of a roster issue than a coaching issue. But, seeing that, especially like a guy like Kevin Byard would, have interceptions and would have like these semi-Pro Bowl years with the Titans, and then, man, there was none of that safety disguise stuff or any of that happening on the back end to, Nate Tice. Remember we talked to Nate Tice over the summer, Bobby? Where he was like, I think this is going to be, what Shane Bowen's doing may be kind of the new wave of defense and pre-snap disguising stuff and safeties rotating and things like that. We just didn't get that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it was a bland defense. And I don't think the players really bought into it a ton either. All right. Next question. Next pregunta.
Deke Freak 72 at JJ Deke Freak 72. Does the NFL having the draft after free agency, unlike the NHL and NBA, matter? Would it benefit the Giants more if it was the same as the other sports? I was fired up about this talking point a couple years ago.
I think this is like a good conversation. I do think it hurts teams because you could just draft players, in the draft, and then you plug your needs in free agency, right?
Because that's how it works in. That's how it works in the NFL.
There's a team that's picking 12th, right? And they might want to sign T. Higgins, but they're like, maybe we get Ted McMillan who falls to us, and it stops them. Here's the thing, though, Justin. The NFL can never change it because of how big their draft is. One, with the amount of players, so the coaches who are not doing this year round have to get involved. One, I think media is a part of it, right? Where the NFL draft is like a year-round business now, and all teams want to get so I don't think they ever could unless they move free agency, and they really waited to free agency till June and really made March just like a total off month. But then teams would have no rest because they're still doing preparation for the draft and stuff in those months. So it's impossible to do it because think about the NBA. Let's say you have the 55th pick in the NBA draft. The head coach of that team really does not give a shit about that or making much influence in this. The 55th pick in the NFL draft, that's fucking that's a premium asset, Yep. Like the 6th round pick, we'll see coaches bang their hand on the table for bang their fist on the table for guys. So it actually would in theory, but in reality is there's just much more preparation needed for the NFL draft than NBA and others and NHL.
Yeah, I don't even think it's a preparation thing. I think it's a money thing. Number one, I think everything is positioned.
It would be horrible for us. Imagine we had to get all more players done by March or whatever.
I think it's positioned perfectly, exactly where it needs to be. Even though, again, I was fired up about this a couple years ago, especially from the standpoint of figuring out. I think it was like a Eli Manning is kind of declining, and I'm very mad at the Giants need to make a decision about his contract without knowing exactly what they're going to be doing and exactly how free agency is going to unfold and how the draft is going to unfold. So that's where I was really fired up about it. So in a perfect world, you would put the draft before free agency because the draft is more important in the NFL versus other sports. I feel like free agency is way more important. Maybe in the NHL, the draft is more important. It's a little bit more similar to football, but basketball, it's free agency is king. And, unless you have even top draft picks in the NBA, depending on the draft, I'm pretty sure sometimes they're not that valuable. It kind of just matters the player that come out of school, right? So yeah, in a perfect world, that would be the case. But I mean, I think the draft is perfectly positioned, whereas football hasn't been on for long enough that people miss it. But then it's a perfect all right, well, we get another dose of football without actually playing any football before we get a major break. So it really is positioned perfectly. The Super Bowl has gone on, long enough. We've had enough of a lull where we want it again. We get another dose of it in a big weekend, and then we really take the break from it. And then same thing with free agency, where it's, that's kind of a little dose of football, a little dose of excitement, and then you take the break from it. So the NFL really does have it positioned perfectly in terms of how do they make money and how do they generate eyeballs on their product.
Yeah. Yep. All right, next question.
Next question is coming from Mr. Brownstone. Probably the most important question of this mailbag. What do I need to do to fix this? Mr. Brownstone is asking.
So this is Mr. Brownstone of Let's Win Some Games, Charlotte, North Carolina Motor Speedway show. Are we going back to Charlotte this year? I'm ready to go.
There may be
Julian's moving to North Carolina, possibly.
He said he interviewed somewhere, not that he's moving.
He's moving.
Grump is moving to North Carolina.
Yeah, Grump's moving to North Carolina. We already have our people, Research Rick, Mr. Brownstone, Tucker Cherry, Tim Coffey. There's a lot of people, North Carolina people, and it literally, won them some games this year.
I would like to one day move to North Carolina. Like we're very much down
it's
the
the
road.
only state I'd live in that's not named Florida.
Yeah, I the area outside of Charlotte is really beautiful. It's not like country. It has kind of like a smaller city vibe feels, which I kind of feel like, hey, there's a lot of people in New Jersey. I don't want to be alone, but I also, it's beautiful down there, and it has the open space and shit like that. So I love the area right outside of Charlotte, Lake Norman, I think it's called. But there may be a warehouse scheduling conflict with Charlotte this year, and I'm trying to get it moved. I either need to garner the courage to tell them that I'm not going to be part of it, or they're going to move it. Because there's a big warehouse.
You gotta get that courage up, my brother.
The Thursday and the Friday before Memorial Day weekend is very tough to have a warehouse tournament. Very tough. That's a tough. Yeah. It's for anybody to have it.
Yeah, you can't do that because we got to save the Giants season. It's don't want to be penny rich and dollar poor. You know what I mean?
I am going on like an island beach vacation this year for the first time in a very long time. But besides that vacation, this is the only vacation I go on every year. So, I don't want to sound like, first world problems here, but the Charlotte trip is a trip that I take every year, regardless of whether you're down there or not. I take it every year with my buddy Noodles and Anthony, our iRacing drivers. So I want to go.
Yeah. So we got to go. But so enjoy the race this weekend, Daytona 500. Phew! If you're in Daytona, I'll be there Thursday and Friday. Are we putting this out tomorrow, Justin, or on Friday?
I
don't think there's any reason to wait. If Jeff is okay with that.
If Jeff is okay with it, I will text him shortly.
This was a good episode. It was a good episode. So see you guys in Daytona. Appreciate you all. We'll see you back next week. Until then, let's go Big Blue.